Welcome to a brand new episode of IDTALK4ED Educators Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah. If this is your first time tuning into the podcast or watching us, welcome, and we hope that you return for more episodes and fresh content. If this is your not first time or you're just a returning member watching us, we welcome you back, and we hope that tonight's episode is one that is insightful and informative for you. But as always, before we get into the main event, just want to do a few announcements. Right now in our Power Shop, we have a lot of new designs that are coming out, and we're trying to touch on all different education professionals in the spectrum. So to check out our latest designs, make sure you go to the Teespring store at teesprings.com/stores/the IDTALK Apparel Shop. And then for our people who are looking for some professional development, we have our virtual program for new teachers and early career teachers. So if you're looking for content focused on culturally responsive and anti-racist teaching practices, or family and student engagement, or just how to develop your teacher identity, this is the course for you. So make sure you book a call with us at calendly.com/IDTALK4EDucators to learn more about this program. So those are the quick announcements. Now let's get to the main event. And we are talking to what I believe is the dynamic duo of education right now, in my humble opinion. You have a father and daughter duo who are doing some transformative things in this education space. And I'm so humbled to have them on this platform to talk about their story and how they're just changing the way that we're thinking about education, not just in America, but really beyond, across the African diaspora, because, we have Black people, not just in America, but all over the country. And there is some commonality with some of the struggles and trials and tribulations we're going through. So I'm ready to get into this conversation. So without further ado, I want to welcome Eva and Jamaal from Black on Black Education, and they're going to kick it with us today. What is good, people?
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
We're doing all right. Just excited to have you all on. We've been trying to do this for a few weeks, so I'm glad that we're able to finally connect and really make this happen.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So before we get in, I always like to ask my guests this question. First, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you into the education field. So I know, Jamaal, you're not a traditional educator per se, but you could just talk with us about, why you want to get involved, in this industry through your entrepreneurial efforts. So we'll do ladies first. So let's start with Eva, and then we'll go with you, Jamaal.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Evalaurene Jean-Charles. I am the founder of Black on Black Education, along with my dear old dad. And I fell into education by accident. That's what happened. In college, I was one of those students that did well in class. So my teachers were like, here's this opportunity, here's this internship, here's this thing, apply for it. And me just kind of going through the motions, I was like, sure, I'll apply for these things. And so I became a John J. Vera Fellow, where I started working at the Center for Alternative Sentencing and Employment Services in Brooklyn, New York. It was an alternative sentencing program that offered opportunities to students who have had gaps in their education because of incarceration. And so that is where I realized I wanted to be a teacher. I was working there for 2-3 weeks, and I literally remember being like, yeah, I'm supposed to be in the education space in some capacity. And that's also where I heard the language Black on Black education for the first time. And from that day on, I was like, I'm going to teach. And so I'm a first-year teacher in the South Bronx. And I'm also going to build my business and figure out best practices and best ways that an organization like ours can support educators, all educators, in providing Black students with the education that they are not getting, but absolutely deserve. So that's,
Yeah.
I run down.
And we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into just the founding of Black on Black education, because I think that story in itself is fascinating and inspiring. But before we get into that, I want to let your father Jamaal just share his path to Black on Black education, and also to just tell the story about how two of you actually connected, because I think that's a very special story that I believe needs to be heard. So, floor is all yours, Jamaal. Talk to us, brother.
So I guess I'll start with how I got into the education space, and that is Whitney Houston says, "I believe the children are the future," and that's really something that I believe. I think that we have some real choices to make, that we are going to grow and develop our children, or we are going to be in for one hell of a ride in terms of what the future looks like. And so I want one where our kids are building our communities, not destroying them. And I think education is the way to make sure that occurs. So I got into the space as a result of my my lovely daughter, calling me one day and saying, "Hey, you know what? I heard this thing. They said Black on Black education." She was all so excited and she was feeling it. And so I was just like, slow down, to explain. And she had heard, I think his name is Akala, a rapper, speak to the idea of Black on Black education, and she'll dive into that a little bit more, her thought. But as soon as she kind of explained, we didn't know what it was going to be, but I was like, let's do it. I'm in. And we just kind of started with some Instagram posts and things to that effect, and we've built built up from there. And like I said, I'll let her share some of those. In terms of the her and I story, I didn't find out about it even until she was 6. So that that's a odd way to to find out that your father, and we connected immediately. Like, I literally remember the first moment that we met. And, I sat down with her and looked down at her, and asked if she knew who I was. She looked up and she said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Who?" She's like, "My dad." And I let her know in that moment that, I haven't been around, not because I didn't want to be around, but because I didn't know. And, I let her know that she would never have to worry about me not being there again. And, I'm going to age myself right here, but, I went to KB toy stores and bought her like this little princess castle thing. And we played, and I read to her, and, she was just happy. And, it was a fantastic start. Introduced her to my family. As you can imagine, coming with a 6-year-old versus a pregnant, lady it's a little odd, but, we invited her into the family, and it's been the honor of my life raising her. If I have done anything right in life, it's the work that I've been able to do with her. So,
man, where's my tissue box? Because we just don't hear positive stories about Black fatherhood. So to hear a story like that, which unfortunately is more common than we'd like for it to be. I mean, still, like, we need to hear more of these narratives. But let's talk about Black on Black education for a second, because as you said, and Eva, you've been nurturing it, and it's like your baby. It's pretty much your baby. So what I want to know is, and you touched on this a little bit, what inspired you all to start the company? But what's the overarching mission of the company? Because we have a lot of Black education organizations out there, but they all have different focuses. So I'm curious to know what the specific focus is for Black on Black education.
Yeah, so I mean, I can jump in here. And like we said, from the beginning, it was like I don't know. We didn't know what it was going to be, but we knew that this idea around Black on Black education was extraordinarily important, because we live in a world where Black on Black crime is more often said and used as a terminology to describe how our community is in relationship with each other. And Black on Black education, to me, is a more accurate depiction of the relationship between Black folks. you don't come from 400 years of slavery. You don't come in this country, because that is not where our history starts. But in this country, you don't come from a 400 years of history, then Jim Crow, then mass incarceration, and then. You don't do that without having the ability to give knowledge to people who look like you and receive knowledge from people who look like you. And so that's where it came from. And now that we're starting to get a better understanding of where we're going, it really is just providing opportunities and spaces for conversation, opportunities and spaces. We live in a society where we can talk about race, and they can hire the white person and pay them $100,000 to have a conversation about race in schools.
Ain't that the truth?
And so it's important that, like you said, there are so many education consulting firms and that are run by Black people, but those places need to be amplified. They need to be amplified, because we live in a world, again, where the white person can get chosen, the white person who's never been a Black kid in a school, whether it be a predominantly white one or a predominantly Black one. And I think it's important for us to have a space that allows for all those education consultants, all those Black folks who have a really clear understanding of what needs to happen in our schools to better support Black students and students of color, that they get their voices amplified in the space of reimagining and recreating education. So that's where we're going. It's a huge mission, huge vision, but day by day we put the bricks together to get there.
And listen, I've been seeing the work that you all been putting in just from afar. Well, that's our only option because of just social distancing. And I know you all are putting in the work, and I'm just excited to see what the future is for Black on Black Ed. Jamaal, if you wanted to add on to anything that Eva said, because I know you have like the dashboards and everything, so you're always crafting something.
Yeah, man. We as Eva said, there is a kind of huge vision, and we got to take it brick by brick, step by step. We a lot of this started off of the back of conversations that she and I have had for a long time. So Eva was a fantastic student. I was a terrible student. I went to school with mostly Black people. Eva went to school with mostly white people. There was this juxtaposition of things that created really interesting conversations between her and I, always as it pertains to education. And we wanted some of those things to actually come out, because when we would talk about it with other people would say, hey, that's interesting. And so now for us, our own podcast, 40, 50 episodes later, so much of what we've done has just been about informing ourselves and learning from like a bunch of amazing educators. So a lot of this has been about our own curiosity for how we shift the narrative around education for Black people, and then how we actually go about the business. We like to say revolutionizing, reimagining, and recreating the system. And yes, that's a big, kind of task, but we feel like there's never been a moment where there's more opportunity to seize upon that phone ringing, sorry. There's never been more of an opportunity than there is now to seize upon it. And so we're working with a phenomenal number of people to do just that. And as Eva said, we're going to highlight the voices of the people who are doing the work. We're going to go out and find money to big up their organizations as we big up ours. And we are going to do this. This is not a maybe okay, like things that can shift around the edges. No, there's going to be a transformation, and our voices are going to be a part of making it so.
Oh no, you are, talking that talk and walking the walk, like I said. So I know you are serious and strong in your convictions as it relates to Black on Black education. But here's what I'm wondering: as a father and daughter team, naturally, there's going to be some conflicts that manifest themselves, whether it's through your meetings or just through talking through different business opportunities. So I'm wondering, how does your relationship as father and daughter influence your relationship as business partners in this venture? Because I know it's not easy. I know it takes time to build that synergy. So I think it's important for us to hear what that is in a nutshell.
Yeah. You want me to go or you want to go first?
After you.
So for me, I'm a difficult person to work with. That's just like I am. I'm a difficult person to work with. I have really, really high standards for myself, but then also really, really high standards for everybody else. I want things to be perfect all the time, which I know is not possible. It doesn't matter. Like, I still want to make it as perfect as possible. And when you work with someone who is your dad, but then also is a little bit scatterbrained and it's like a little bit the direct opposite of who you are as an individual in almost all facets of life, you have to really just manage that. And I think that honestly, I have to give him most of the credit for it, because he's able to, like, she was rude and mean and like didn't say it in a nice way, but like I'm gonna call her a few hours later to talk about what we have to talk about, and like completely void and ignore the not so nice way she spoke to me earlier. And so I honestly have to give him most of the credit for it, because I'm not great at it, and it's something that I have to develop. So like sometimes I'll go back and send him a voice message and be like, hey, I know I was being unreasonable, sorry. And sometimes I won't, because I'm working on it. But he obviously can take most of the credit for our ability to be daughter and father, and also be business partners. And he also like does a really great job of like, because sometimes we'll go into spaces that don't know us very well or don't know our organization that well, and they'll immediately start talking to him, and they'll immediately start like acting as though he's in charge of everything. But that's actually the case in our dynamic. And so we both have to like figure out, okay, this is the area where he's the expert in and he knows all of these things, and this is just what he's better suited to do. And then this is the area where like I'm more better suited to do, and I think that I have the expertise to handle this situation. So we're really good at like throwing it at the person who needs it at the time. And then again, he forgives and forgets. I'm not so good at that. And so I sometimes have to just remind myself that like I can't expect someone else to work the same way that I do and in the same ways that I do. So it's that word grace that I am continuously learning that helps make the dynamic work.
But you know what? I think it's great that you are aware of that, because not a lot of people are able to reflect and come to that conclusion about themselves and be that honest and transparent. So that's kudos to you for even identifying that and saying, you know what, I'm a work in progress. I'm going to continue to get to where I need to go and put the work in. But Jamaal, so Eva mentioned the fact that you all are working at delegating different responsibilities in order for Black on Black Ed to go forward. So as you answer the original question about just the dynamic between you and her, if you could just share some of the ways in which you all delegate responsibilities so that you all can both thrive and maximize on your respective skill sets and talents.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the number one thing for me is I have to always, concentrate on checking my ego as to not, apply the power dynamic of dad to what we're doing, in business. So, that would be unhealthy. And so I try diligently not to do that. So that, there is some wisdom that comes from having been in entrepreneurial endeavors before, or just, business. And even as I try to put that stuff out there, I just try to do it in a way that's not gonna be, just trigger any type of, animosity. And so I also have to recognize that, over the course of these 2 years, I haven't carried the weight as much as she has the whole thing. Like she's been the constant, and I've been kind of in, and lately I'm there all the time. But, at the beginning of the pandemic and stuff, I had a rough, patch where, I was in the bed and I was watching Netflix and stuff, it hit me hard. And so, while she's still doing work, and then I'm supposed to be doing work, and she's like, why are you not doing work?
We're in the same house, mind you, we're in the same house. We need to add that to the part.
Wow.
So,
she coming at you, bro.
Not easy.
It's real. It was a challenging time. But we have been able to to get over it by focusing in on the kind of shared vision. And so as Eva said, we do have different there's a lot of very similar things about us, and then there's some real differences. I have I'm scatterbrain, half a mad scientist, but a beautiful scattered mind. Some people have said, not me, but some people have said. Whereas she is, she wants to plan out everything like into boxes and on pages and dots, and I'm just, and that, that's like, oh God, like I'm free flowing, and she's rigid. So one of the things that we know for the ultimate growth of the company is we're going to need like a bridge in between us. Like ultimately, we want to have like another partner who comes in and kind of has done this type of work before in education, but is also good at taking a vision, helping to take the pieces associated with it, and then pulling it all together. So we know that that's going to be part of our future, and we look forward to manifesting that person into into the company. But in terms of breaking up and each person doing the stuff that they're most capable of doing, as we're launching this conference, and it's coming up in a couple of weeks. I know we'll talk about it, but Eva has been good at setting up the plan for the conference and setting up the pages that we're gonna work with. Me, I'm on the phone all the time with the various different people who are sponsoring the conference. I'm bringing in more ticket sales and things to that effect. I'm doing the pieces that are kind of my superpowers. She's doing the pieces that are her superpowers, and together we're connecting and forming Voltron, it works fantastic some days, and then other days it's like, goodness gracious, why did I sign up for this? But I think that's the way that it is for anybody in business. It's just a different dynamic when you add the father-daughter piece in there, but because we are friends. That's the last thing I would say is just because we are, it's I haven't taken the approach of I'm your father, and so it's going to be like this. We are actually friends, and we talk about stuff outside of the business. It lends itself to her knowing that I'm truly concerned about, that there's true concern and care about how she feels about what's going on, and vice versa. And so if we can't do it in the moment, we always still figure out a way to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, and then it also helps. Oh, so I'm sorry, because it just also helps that we don't live together anymore. That helps. It also helps that like when I became an adult, like 18, I know a lot of my friends who are the same age as me, who their parents are like, no, you can't go on vacation. No, you can't go here. No, you can't do this. And before I was an adult, that wasn't the relationship and the dynamic that we had. So when I moved into adulthood, there wasn't this, he's my dad, so he's going to tell me what to do sort of dynamic in our relationship. So I think that like there are some father and daughters that would never be able to work together in this capacity because there's a domineering parent that kind of tells the child what to do. And although I understand that like he is my father, I genuinely see our friendship first before I see like he's my dad. Like, of course, like he's my dad, yeah, but like he doesn't tell me what to do anymore. Like that's just not how it works, and that's fine. And like when it's time to make the tie between like this is my personal business and this is your personal business, we understand that like that's where the line kind of gets drawn. So I think to the original question, being able to work with your parent only works in relationships where you have a strong bond with that person. Because if it was something where he was super domineering, there'd be no way that we would be here right now.
But just to give the two of you credit, I believe there's room for both your rigid and structured nature, because when you're trying to build a business, and I've learned this from my own business coach, you need systems. You need protocols you have to put in place in order for the business to function, ultimately to automaticity, right? But then you also have to be aspirational. You have to be able to dream. You have to be a visionary. And I think that's where Jamaal comes in with the big ideas and just, all right, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. And I feel like I'm a combination of both you and your father, because I know for me, I always have ideas. Like I could wake up and the idea just pops into my head. I feel like the best ideas happen when you are in a state of rest and you're able to dream and you're able to just let those ideas manifest themselves in your brain. And then you wake up in the morning, it's like, all right, bet I'm going to draft this plan. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Or when you're taking a walk, it's just weird how ideas just pop up, you know, for just the business. But I think there's room for both. I think when you combine what you do and what your father does, you have the perfect business person because you need all those attributes.
Absolutely.
For sure. So with this next question, I'm going to throw it right at you, Eva, because I know that you are in your first year of teaching.
I am.
And you're coming in as an entrepreneur, which is rare for first-year teachers. Very rare. So what I want to know is, number one, how's that first year going for you? And then secondly, how have you been able to balance your teacher responsibilities with just being a CEO of your own company? What's that been like?
Whew, that's a huge question. How has my experience been as a first-year teacher? Well, we are in a pandemic, so let's start there. I am teaching from behind a screen. I also teach at a transfer high school. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it is a high school where students come from other school contexts where they are either undercredited or they have been expelled or they have severe behavioral issues that have led to them needing to find another setting for education. And so that's the school that I work at. And I knew the population of students going in. And so it is not my kids that makes this first year experience extraordinarily difficult. It's the process of having to learn at the same time, stepping into a school that is very new. And so there are systems that are not in place and resources that are not available at all times there. And there's just the honest fact that like, I don't always feel supported. I don't always feel like I have the wherewithal to do the job that I'm being asked to do. And I think a lot of teachers feel that way. And so thankfully I found my tribe of people at my school who like get me through it every day. I literally got off the phone with my dad this morning of like, yesterday, I was supposed to be on Clubhouse last night and I wasn't because I slept through it because I was crying after class yesterday. Because I have a student who is just so kind and so sweet and so smart, but he doesn't know that. He doesn't realize that. And he doesn't have the resources to get him to where he needs to go. And he has months until he graduates high school. And so it is just that feeling of not being able to do enough. I think all teachers have felt it. And in my first year, I'm still figuring out how to mitigate that. And so then getting to the second half of the question is like, how do I balance being a teacher with being a CEO of a business? I'm really, really clear with my boundaries. So like 4:30, I stopped getting paid. 4:30, I stopped doing work. I'm like, whatever has to be done can get done tomorrow. And our school schedule doesn't allow a lot of time during the school day to actually do the work that you need to be prepared for the next day. So thankfully, I have a co-teacher who's really organized and similar to me in that way. And so we're able to kind of balance out and pick up off of each other. But the reality is I'm struggling. Like as a teacher, I'm struggling. As a CEO, I'm struggling. And at all of this time, being a first-year teacher, we talked about this a little bit previously, but I also lost my mom at the beginning of December. And so being a CEO has been really, really hard because being a teacher has been really, really hard because being a person has been really, really hard. And I think that sometimes we meaning society doesn't see teachers as humans. Like I had students, my birthday was last week, and I had students that were like, why aren't you coming to work on Friday? And I'm like, because my birthday was today and I want to enjoy my long weekend. And they were like, doing what? Like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, do y'all think I just sit at home waiting to teach y'all? Like, I don't understand.
They do believe that though. They do believe that.
Similar to kind of leadership where maybe for leadership, this job is your whole life and you don't do anything else. And that's great for you. But like, I do other things. I have other things that I deeply care about outside of this job. And so sometimes it's just that miscommunication between what it means to be a teacher and like the ideas that we have around what it means to be a good teacher. Because how often do you see on Instagram people being like, this teacher was up all night creating her lesson plan for Black History Month, and everyone's giving them like a high five for that, which is incredible that they have that dedication. But then where is their self-care? Where is their transition from being a teacher to being a person? And so I think that dynamic is what really answers the question of how do I balance the two? It's taking care of myself. And I'm not doing the best job all the time, but I'm trying my best to pay close attention to so like my dad, like, don't call me before 9 a.m. because before 9 a.m. I am working out, I'm meditating, I'm journaling, I'm doing my Spanish lesson, I'm walking my dog, I'm doing what I need to clear my head before I have to do anything that has to do with Black on Black education or that has to do with my job, because I can't. Like, I need to have there goes that rigid person again, those very clear boundaries and delineations between, like, this is Eva's time, this 2 hours when I wake up at 6 a.m., like this 6 to 9, like that is my time that no one else, like I'm not giving it to anybody else. And then when I clock in at 9:45 and I work from 10 to 4:30, like that, I'm going to try to give as much as I can to my students and to what I need to do for my job in that moment. And then from 4:30 on, then I can start to transition to being a CEO, which is why sometimes I do have to lean on him so much, because he's at this and working at this full time. So it's just making those boundaries, clearly setting them, and then being really honest when, like, I can't do that right now. Like, I can't. That really, really has helped me through there. And I know that, like, doing the podcast for so long before becoming a teacher was so integral to where I am now, because I heard teachers say that, like, I waited until I burnt out. Or I heard teachers / edupreneurs say that, like, I waited, or I would just be up all night doing business stuff, sleep for 2 hours, wake up, do it again. And then months later, I couldn't function because I wasn't getting enough sleep and I wasn't taking care of myself. And so hearing that over and over again, episode after episode with educators, it really just told me that, like, starting out as a teacher, don't say you can do stuff when you don't know how to do it. Don't ask for help when you need it. Put in an email that you asked for this resource and it wasn't provided to you, so that you have your receipts set up for when you weren't able to accomplish something for someone, that you understand that, like, you did your best to get there, and not making you and taking on for myself to start to feel bad for not being able to provide something or to do something, when the reality is I was set up to not be able to do that thing. And it really has been it has been being really clear that, like, I can't take on what is not my fault. That's been the biggest how I manage it is by realizing that, like, I have to wash my hands when I can't do something.
No, and that is very big, because as an entrepreneur, you have to have the meditation, the journaling. It's so funny. You're talking like my business coach right now. Make sure you meditate every day. Make sure you journal every day. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not always the most consistent when it comes to those things, because I'm kind of like scatterbrained in that kind of way. So when Jamaal talks about that, like, I get it, because I have those moments myself. But you mentioned something about teachers not coming into the classroom being able to effectively advocate for themselves. And I do believe it's by design. And this has been a recurring issue in a lot of the episodes I've done on the podcast, where you have a lot of teachers, who say, man, like, I feel like I have to do this. I got a grade, I got a lesson plan, I got to do that. But they don't feel like they have the power to advocate for themselves because of a certain status they have within their school setting. Or it's the fact that, all right, I need this job in order to pay the bills, in order to pay this mortgage, in order to provide for my family and to feed my kids. So I can't risk this livelihood. But I don't think it's something that's taught in our teacher ed program. So I definitely feel you on that. Definitely feel you. Jamaal. So you kind of came into this education space as a student, because you told yourself, man, like, I don't really know a whole lot about, like, education in terms of the behind the scenes. I know growing up I was a bad student. I wasn't like an A+ student or an honor roll student. But I guess over these past couple of years, I would assume that you learned a lot from Eva in terms of what it means to be a teacher and but also some of the political aspects of education just through simply being a student. So I want to know from you, just as a career serial entrepreneur, what's allowed you to just keep that drive going, to grind and to innovate? Because you've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of people can't stay on this grind for a long time. Entrepreneurship's not easy. So I just want to know from you, like, how do you maintain the juice?
I mean, so it's. I guess I don't always maintain it. You know what I mean? I've been an entrepreneur, and I've had some dark years. Like, I mean, like it's prior to. I mean, I'll take you on a journey. My last 2 corporate America jobs, where I was a sales guy, entrepreneur. I got fired from both of them, and I was actually good when it came to the sales work, but the paperwork and the administration that would come behind that, I was a terror, and I just wouldn't do the things that I was told were required of me, and they both showed me the door. And in between both of those, one time I kind of started a telecom company, and I was out for about 18 months working at telecom company. I made some coin, but I wasn't uber successful at it. And I reached a point where I went through savings and things to that effect, and I had to go get another gig. That gig I had for that first gig, I got fired on my daughter's birthday, which was crazy. It was right, in front of her sweet 16. So I had to wait till like after her sweet 16 to tell her, so she wasn't scared and stuff. But after taking some time off and doing the what I spoke about as it pertains to the telecom, I wound up having to go back because I didn't make enough money. Next time I got fired 1 year to the day. It was October 3rd to October 3rd, where they were like, see you later. And it occurred to me that corporate America was not the place. So while I could, go out and sell, I can't sell stuff that I don't believe in. I can't, people have said, you can sell water to a whale. I'd be like, why would I want to sell water to a whale? Like, what I mean? Whale don't need me to sell no water to it. That's not what
Who said it?
That's what that's fine. It's fine for him. But I only want to sell things that I absolutely positively believe in. And I believe in the future of our community. And I believe in education's role in creating the future of our community. So I'm like, let me go about the business of selling that. And that's what Black on Black education is all about, is the highlighting of people who are doing that. And it gives me a different level of energy than I ever had from trying to sell telecommunication services, where it's just a widget. Your widget's the same as your widget. I didn't get the juice, as you called it, from those places. I get the juice from this because I know that not necessarily without me, but without us doing the work that we're doing, our communities are going to, if not stay the same, they're going to get worse. I want our communities to get better. And I think education is the foundation of what is going to occur. So not just education, K through 12, but education of the communities. If we're doing these things right, then the schools are the center of the community. If we're doing things right, then parents get to come and take classes on how to make healthy meals for their kids. If we're doing things right, they get to come and find job skills and things to that effect. And then these buildings, the walls drop and it extends out to the whole entire community. So, I believe that that's kind of the exemplar for how we should approach things. And I want to find every single place out there that's following that kind of example, amplify them, again, find dollars and cents to make them more, and then make it so that, we reach a critical mass where this is the way education works. And I believe with every fabric of my being that we are on our way to doing that. And once again, when I say we, I don't mean even and I mean all of us.
No, and that's important to highlight because you have so many people who are doing this work and doing it well and with fidelity. And the only way we can move forward as a collective is with each other. This isn't going to be done in silos, but that's kind of how education is in a lot of our schools. They always talk about collegiality and just having a school culture, but the way things are structured sometimes in our different schools schools, we're forced to work in silos where we don't get that kind of support from each other, whether it's with lesson planning, whether it's with behavior management. Is like, nah, you got to figure that out on your own. And we got to break that culture. We got to break that.
It's even more than that, though, Kwame. Those silos exist. That when you talk about the difference between this side of the street and this side of the street, and there being an arbitrary line through it that says that you go to this district and you go to this district, you get this much money and you get this much money. And you have, almost exclusively Black students, and you have almost exclusively white students. And now white students, it's people don't like when I say this, but they're being abused too, because they're being taught in a way where they don't understand the people over here, and Black people don't understand the people over here. And then how the hell are we gonna come together as a country when nobody understands one another? Now they're getting the better end of the stick, no matter what, but it's not working for anybody. And so those walls have to get dropped. ABC 1, 2, 3, those grades, they stop people from you give me an F and now I think I'm stupid, and so I don't want to go about the business of learning anymore. It's an arbitrary silo that needs to go away. Grades 1, 2, 3. Who says that everybody in first grade is going to be at the same level of another silo where it's just this English class and then math class and then history class, when we know that the way people learn is in an interdisciplinary fashion where all of these things are connected and should be working together. All of those silos need to start to be removed so that we can really, really, really unleash the power of our kids. That they all have like an incredible amount of treasure inside, and it's our job to go and hone and mine and water and help them to find that treasure.
Yeah. And to your point, there's a podcast that I listened to months ago. I don't know if y'all have listened to Nice White Parents. Oh, y'all need to listen to that because it's focused on a particular school in New York. I want to say it's in either the Bronx or in Brooklyn. And they talk about the history of this school, through the 1950s when it was first established, through Jim Crow's civil rights era, even to this current stage where you have gentrification taking place and charter schools coming up and everything. So definitely listen to that podcast because all these things you're mentioning tie into what they talk about. It's a 5-part series. Very in-depth, very well researched. I believe the New York Times, or I think it was NPR. NPR was the main company that put the podcast together. And yeah, they did a really good job of just researching. So I would definitely check out Nice White Parents if you haven't done so.
Will do.
All right. So why don't we talk about the conference, which I am excited to be a part of. Black on Black Education Conference, the second annual one, right? So
Semi-annual. So it's
semi-annual. So you're doing 2 this year. So this is the first of 2.
Working hard.
And revolutionary. Look at that, y'all. Look at that. Hopefully y'all get some sleep.
Trying.
Hopefully. But listen. First off, talk to us about what this semi-annual conference is. Why should people attend it? And what can they expect from this conference?
All right.
And go ahead, Eva.
So I can kick it off. So why should people attend? I mean, any person, any teacher, any educator, parent, policymaker that realizes that education is not where it needs to be right now and serves Black students and students of color in any capacity, that's why they should be there, because we're going to be having conversations starting with the voices of students. And so our first night, Tuesday the 23rd, we start with the students got something to say, student voice and choice, and the students got something to say challenge, where we're going to just be highlighting folks students from all over who are interested in talking about what they want from the education system that they're not getting. Because I think that that's one of the biggest lacks that we've had from education spaces in general. We talk about changing the system, fixing the system. It needs to be this, it needs to be that. Anti-racism needs to be taught. This needs to be taught. And then it's coming from teachers' mouths. It's not coming from kids' mouths. Kids aren't saying that this is exactly what we want to learn or how we want to learn it. So why are we trying to reinvent something without talking to the consumer? They wouldn't do that in corporate America. Why were we doing it in the education system? And so that's how we want to start. Then we're kicking it over to parents, families, and community. We want people to realize that like creating a child, developing a child is not something that teachers do alone. And it's also not something that students do alone. That teachers do alone, excuse me. And so we should make sure that we're having a space to talk with teachers, but also hear from parents and families who are trusting the system with their children. I think that part we leave out. Yeah, kids have to go to school. Legally, you have to send your kid to school in some capacity. That's correct. But it's also important that the parent's voice is a part of the child receiving the education that they deserve, because from what I'm finding just in my short time as a teacher at this point is that parents and families, they woefully trust the education system to support their kid. They trust that teachers and schools are doing what their kid needs. And then when their kid gets to almost graduation and the school's like, oh, they didn't make it, they're like, what? What do you mean my kid's on a third grade reading level? What do you mean that my kid doesn't understand all this they've been in your school for all this time. Like, how do they not know this? And so it's so important to be listening to the families, because the families are oftentimes experts on the child that the teacher is sitting in front of every day. And then we kick it over to Policy and Equity Night, where we're going to be talking to folks about what is education policy? Because I'm a teacher and I'm confused. I don't know what that means. I know that there's school policies that I have. I know that, but I also know there's this trickle down from the government that gets to decide what I sit in front of kids and deliver to them. And so I think it's really important that we get a chance to talk to people who are policymakers or who just have a really better understanding of policy, so that teachers are armed with like, oh no, this is what the law says and this is what our school is doing. And this is the juxtaposition between those two things. And then I'll kick it over to Daddy. This mirror thing kills me every time. And to talk about what we're going to be doing on Saturday.
Saturday is going to be kind of chocked full of a bunch. That's where you'll be represented, Kwame. I'm looking over at it. It's we'll have an incredible keynote by Rodney Robinson, 2019 Teacher of the Year. We have our decolonized curriculum panel. We have cultivating a creative child a session. Then you are going to drop all kind of knowledge with the 3 Ps of culturally responsive learning, anti-racist teaching, which are pursuit, passion, and purpose. So I look forward to hearing you there. Mindfulness, equitable practice, integrating literacy and math, the power of STEM to transform education in our communities. So looking forward to that combo. Social and emotional learning through the arts, Edupreneurs Connect, curating school culture panel, and that's just about it. So that's what the day is going to look like. It's going to be filled with speeches, workshops, various different sessions, and we're just excited. We have a who's who in terms of education. Many of them have been on the podcast, people who we've learned a whole bunch from, and we're just excited to engage with the community conversation. We kind of started with the question, what would the greatest intergenerational conversation around the transformation of Black education look like? And we've set out to answer that with what's going to flow in this conference. So we just couldn't be more excited, and we look forward to as many of y'all as possible being there.
But much love to y'all, because I've been to many conferences where I've done workshops, seminars, been an attendee, and usually with educator conferences, we focus so much on the workshop sessions, which are all around pedagogy and instruction, right? And then you might have a panel where they talk a little bit about policy. They might touch on it and scratch the surface, but they don't do a deep dive into it. But what you all doing is just something that I've never seen before in any conference. You're bringing the student voice in. You're bringing the policy and equity piece in. You're bringing the workshop piece in, where you're still talking about that traditional instruction and pedagogy. You don't have, conferences that are that balanced, where you're giving equitable time to each of these different aspects. So I just wanted to give you all a shout out for really making an effort to make this a balanced, learning experience for educators who do attend?
Yeah, and not just the learning experience, man. Like, you know, we're going to listen to you know, what educators have to say. You know, we are going to highlight voices of people throughout, and you know, we look forward to you know, curating the conversation for lack of a better term, because I don't know anybody who has it all figured out themselves, like from top to bottom. I mean, Chris Emden's pretty close, but you know, most people don't have it, you know, figured out from the top to the bottom. So we're going to bring, you know, subject matter experts in a bunch of different areas. And even for the people who are not going to be on the stage, they're going to get an opportunity to share their voices as well. So we love it. We love it.
Ava, did you want to add any more?
We just want to see folks there. Like, I think that was the best part of that's the best part of everything that we've created thus far, right? It is having the opportunity to hear from other folks who bring in different perspectives. Every time I host one of these conversations, or we host one of these conversations, someone brings something up and is like, oh my goodness, now we got to think about how we do this and implement this into there. But it's not a burden sort of thing. It's a thank you for giving us and offering us another piece of insight that we hadn't been paying attention to. And that's what like creating spaces like this is all about. So I just want folks to be there, and I hope to learn and grow and engage with you all. So I'm very, very excited.
Just to quickly extend Eva's point, last night, like we start our Thursday night clubhouses, you know, at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and you know, I had a couple of the moderators drop out about 8:30, and my intent was to, you know, wrap up the room, but you know, people wanted to share, people wanted to be involved, and so you know, at 10:57, you know, when I was finally able to get off almost 4 hours later, I still went to bed like with this warm and humbling feeling, you know, with feeling like, damn, we got a lot of work to do, but also feeling like there's this incredible tribe of people who are going to do it with, and so, you know, I went to bed with a smile on my face, because this is our collective time, and for all the people who get discouraged by the challenges associated with it, you know, don't let it stop you. I promise you it's happening. I promise you it's happening slowly but surely. The power that be, they cannot stop it if we all continue to connect and do this together. So join us at the conference, join us on Clubhouse, join us on Instagram, you know, rock with us, be a part of the tribe. We're welcoming in that regard, and we want to hear your voices, and let's just do this thing together, man. It's yeah, I love it. I love it.
No, and I feel the energy, and it's perfect, because earlier today, and I know you're probably asleep when I put this post out because of the time zone difference, but I put out an IG post which talks about what you're talking about, just this idea of educators just being revolutionary, right? And because of Black History Month, I decided to talk about, you know, Black Panther Party and what happened with COINTELPRO, J. Edgar Hoover. And the point that I was making with that post is COINTELPRO happens in our education systems. If you think about it, think about how you have, you know, those teachers that smile in your face, but then they talk smack behind your back to your principal, right? Sometimes our principals and superintendents are the J. Edgar Hoovers of the whole operation, where they're conspiring to go against you and what you're trying to do. And we think about conspiracies and just the fact that COINTELPRO stands for Counterintelligence Program. Think about that for a second. They want to counter the intelligence and the brilliance of what we do as educators, because they know that we're dope. They're intimidated by us. That's our leverage point. That's what we need to leverage. And that's what, go ahead, Eva.
No, I mean, I say this all the time. I say it all the time, and I said it to my students, and they've sat there like, But like, think about how powerful you have to be for people to create laws, policies, practices around oppressive women.
Exactly.
Think about it.
Exactly.
Think about it. So all these questions that you're asking me that you think, like I have my students every day, one in particular I'm thinking about, every day comes in and he just wants to figure out a way to like mess with me. Like he wants to see he's gonna mess me up. So all, like full disclosure, I'm teaching in a content area that I don't know. Special education teacher in a content area that is not even close to my area of expertise. I haven't learned the subject since I was in, what year do you learn earth science? 10th grade? Something like that. So I'm learning as I go, right? And so he asked me the other day a question, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer to that. You're gonna have to ask Mr. Garcia, who's my content teacher. And he was like, well, why do they have teachers that don't know what they're teaching? And I go, that's a great question, Jadiel. You should go and ask. You should go and ask. Go. I mean, your text, like you go ask them, because I can't answer that question for you.
Kwame, can you just add a beep in there? Just beep the name out real quick. Thanks.
And so, I mean, I said that little anecdote to say that I have students that are constantly trying to, and I don't really think that they realize the power in the questions that they're asking. Mm-hmm. And so then the rest of class, we didn't do anything. Because I was like, well, I want you to sit and think about the question that you asked and how powerful it is, right? Because you're asking a question about the education that you're receiving. It's an important question to ask about the education that you're getting. And if you don't think that it's appropriate, you have the power to go to the people who made the decision and ask them that. You can do that. Now, I might get in trouble after break for that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the reality is that kids every day get in trouble for asking powerful questions. Powerful questions that the answer is a problem, or that there is no answer for because the choice or the decision was made without really thinking. Mm-hmm. And so I love you bringing that up because it's so important for us, for our people in general, to know that we have to be so incredibly powerful in our being and who we are. Just as is. Didn't learn nothing yet, didn't do, just as is. For someone to want to create policies and practices that oppress us and that harm us and our access to education. That is so incredibly important in this conversation and in any conversation that we have about transforming education.
Listen, and this is a great time to be a Black educator. Hell, this is a great time to be an educator, period, because more than ever, you have so many people who are amplifying these concerns. And one of the best things about this pandemic, and there's not a lot of good we can talk about with it, but one of the best things about it is the fact that we're starting to unpeel the layers of the onion. That is the issues that have existed within our education system for so many generations. Parents and other stakeholders are now starting to see what we've been talking about all this time. If they didn't believe us pre-COVID, they definitely believe us now. But we have to continue to amplify. We have to continue to agitate, advocate, and most importantly, continue to be revolutionary. And that's what the conference that you are putting together is for, that very purpose. But listen, y'all, we've been talking about education for a minute. I do want to wind down. Jamaal, did you want to add something, brother?
I mean, the last part that kind of popped into my head, you know, when you were talking there was just the idea of, you know, and this is more of a like university, but you know, if you think about Harvard and kids not being in the classroom now, like the Harvard providing their classes, you know, over Zoom, it's a perfect example to say, Harvard, you can provide this to everybody. If the idea of education is to improve society, and you guys are the cream of the crop in terms of doing it, you could just provide this to everybody. You know, you don't
still have $1 billion endowment in your pocket.
I thought it was more than that. Like it's a ridiculous number. Yeah, and still have a sick amount of money. It just, it highlights just the unfairness of the, of the system, and how silly it is the way that we're doing things. And it's caused more people to bring it up. And shame is not a great emotion for for people to feel like, I don't think you often shame. I thought it was 40 billion.
$40.9 billion endowment.
Insane. So these companies need to certainly be shamed into saying, wow, we have this thing, and the purpose of this thing is to education, to bring out, that's to bring out the best in people, to bring out the best in our culture, and we're going to put it behind a paywall of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, so that all of these people we're just going to be this luxury brand. We want to be a Bugatti of education, when what we really can do is be an incredible equalizer. Nah, man, you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. You need to change, and we're gonna apply pressure to make sure that you do so.
I love it, man. I just love that. I'm
turning him into a revolutionary. I'm so proud.
Turn into a revolutionary?
I'm turning him into a revolutionary. I'm still working on it with him. I'm still working on it.
No, but the energy's there.
Not fully here yet. Come on.
No, the energy is there. The energy's there. I feel the energy, and it's like, yo, I'm ready to go. Like, let's go, right?
Let's go.
Yes, but we want to wind this down because we've been talking a lot of education talk, which we love dearly, but it's also important for us to have balance and equilibrium in our lives.
Yes,
so I want to go into the lightning round right now.
Ooh.
Yes, the lightning round. So you all did receive these questions. And the first question that I have to ask, and I ask all my guests, is what is your favorite self-care activity right now? Because with all the work you're doing, you have to create some room for self-care. So I know, Eva, you mentioned a few self-care activities that you do every morning. But if you want to add, to that, what are some other things that you do outside of the meditation and walking your dog and learning your Spanish? What else is going on?
I started reading for pleasure. So as a teenager, the Twilight Saga, everybody was reading it and I needed it, and I read it, and I love all of the movies, and it's cheesy and it's corny, but the author came out with a new book, and so I have been devouring it because it is fantastic. And it's like, I've got my Bettina love. Don't hurt me. I am reading so that I become a better educator and a better business owner, but I also read for pleasure.
Oh,
that's important too. What about you, Jamaal?
Yeah, like Eva, and the consistency here is not always there, but lately it has been. My mornings are my mornings, and I've been getting up without an alarm clock with the energy of the and passion of this work. 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning, and the first handful of things, the first thing I do is brush my teeth. Because then I'm like, okay, now I feel woke. I feel I got a minty mouth. Like, I'm woke, I'm up. And then I do a meditation. I grab one of these, books, it's and I read like a passage or two, and, sit down and kind of reflect on that. I write, I constantly have this pen in my hand and my notability. I'm doing push-up contests right now with my friends. So I'm not doing these full workouts, but I'm doing 100+ push-ups every day, and just trying to stay consistent with those things. I am almost at the end of this fast. I did this D-herbs fast, so I've been eating all raw foods. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm a pretty incredible cook, and I make everything. So, the last meal I had prior to this was like a incredible duck poutine, which, I'm missing those flavors and stuff, but I also feel fantastic, from kind of cleaning myself out and things like that, and pulling in the vegetables. So on the back of this, I definitely am going to, continue some of that. I think that'll be an incredible way to continue to care for myself.
All right. Single ladies, if y'all heard that, brother can cook. Brother can cook now. So make sure you holler at Jamaal. Cook you a meal. There you go.
This is that dynamic between
upon daughter approval, of course. Upon daughter approval.
Oh no, that's not my business. Remember, personal.
Yeah.
There you go.
Boundaries.
All right. Second question. I don't know if you've all had a chance to do the research on this, but what are your top 5 father and daughter duels? And it could be from television, it could be just from business. Your top 5 father and daughter duels.
Got to go with Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole. That's a good one.
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. Oh, it's terrible. I'm like throwing it back, but the first show I binged this year, we've got to go. Oh my gosh, what show was it? One-on-One with Flex Washington and what was her name?
Kyla Pratt. Yep.
I loved them together. They were hilarious, and I loved that they were just so cool with each other, and they were friends first. So that was one of my favorites.
You got Will and Will Smith and what's his daughter's name? I see her face.
Willow.
Yeah, whipping her hair back and forth.
Okay, we've got what else? Who else?
Jay-Z and Blue.
Jay-Z. I mean, Blue is like already a billionaire, so clearly we gotta rep them. All right, we need one more. Dad.
Who else we got?
Did we not watch things like this? Is it like we didn't watch like father-daughter stuff?
But they weren't really father-daughter. Like it was, you know what I mean? It would have been, and that's not daddy-daughter. That's daddy's son. Who you got, Kwame? You let's we teamed here, man. Give us one more.
I'm lost.
I mean, it's usually the guest question, but I throw something. All right, daddy and daughter duo.
We need one more. We got to teach people completion. We
Okay.
He was cheating.
I am.
You know what? I will go with
Barack and his 2 daughters.
Come on, and his 2 daughters. How did we miss that?
You got it. Sasha and Malia. Yes. Perfect way to end that list.
Y'all would have been mad if I had said Trump and
Stop it. See? You see? It's not even funny.
See how she talks to me? You see?
Yeah, I already see the dynamic right there. I see it. All right.
New era. Don't do that.
All right, y'all. I got one more question.
Okay, let's do it.
So if you can invite, you know what? Because it's the 2 of y'all, usually I say 3 influential figures. I'm going to go with 5. If you can invite 5 influential figures, dead or alive, to dinner, who would they be?
James Baldwin.
Will Smith.
Paulo Freire.
This is going to be very weird. Well, it's not too weird, but Leonardo da Vinci.
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
You said Will Smith?
I said Will Smith.
We ain't got no women in there. What are we doing?
Yeah, that's bad.
All right, we'll get a 6th one in there. Let's get a woman in there.
Well, we gotta bring Michelle. I mean, she just has to come.
Can't leave Oprah out either, though.
We can't leave Oprah.
So I'm cooking. So mad people are gonna come. Like we're gonna have like
they'll just bring their friends. They all get +1s.
Yeah,
okay, there we go. Those are.
I love it. No, I love it. Man, Eva and Jamaal, man, I appreciate y'all for coming on the podcast.
Yes.
It's been a dope conversation. And before we wrap things up, if you want to let people know how they can connect with you on social media, also your website information and anything else they need to know about y'all, this is a good time to do that.
Want me to do the plug, Dad? All right. So Black on Black Education can be found at Black on Black Ed on Instagram and Twitter, Black on Black Education on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can reach us at eva@blackonblackeducation.com or Jamaal@blackonblackeducation.com. And our website is www.blackonblackeducation.com. Reach out. Our DMs are like the most accessible place to find us. We are so grateful and thankful for everyone who's followed us thus far and grateful and thankful for this space. Oh, yes. And please don't forget to listen to our podcast too. too, because we do everything, talk with educators and chat about education. So please, you can find us on Apple and Google Podcasts and Spotify.
And you can find us in the club, bottom foot,
Yes,
Clubhouse. We are there on the regular as well. And we want to thank you, Kwame. We really appreciate you opening your space to us. We know you talk to a bunch of people, and there's a bunch more who you could talk to. But this afternoon, you chose us, and we appreciate being chosen. We don't take for granted the fact that you brought us into your space and have us talking to your guests. So we definitely appreciate that, and we look forward to returning the favor when we relaunch the podcast in the next couple of weeks.
And listen, and now I gotta give you y'all flowers too, because I've been following you guys for a minute, and there are a lot of people who I follow on Instagram, but there are certain people, within that space who, like, every time I get on Instagram, like, I'm learning something, or I get inspired, like they give me that feeling, and you all are among that group of folks who, every time I come across your page or interact with you in any way, I always gain something from it. I always become a better educator because of listening to y'all. So just from one educator to another, I appreciate y'all.
There we go. That was. We appreciate you.
All right, even Jamaal. So we will connect again. Thank you all for coming, and we're gonna do this again soon.
Of course.
Peace out, folks. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. All right, folks. So there you have it. Another episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live. And as always, we wish you all a good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And we're going to do this again another time. Peace out, people.